Now, I've driven every type of i30N you can buy except for this. This is the i30N Fastback, and it's the sort of swoopy, better looking version of the hatchback which you can buy, but this thing is a limited edition. What makes it limited? Well, apparently there's only 500 units going around. And so being lucky enough to drive all the different types of i30N, I wanted to see if it's worth going and grabbing one of these while you still can, or maybe buying one on the secondhand market. So to do that, I'll walk you around the exterior features, the interior features, and take it for a drive to let you know if it's worth grabbing one of these. My name's Cameron, this is Product Review Cars. Let's get into it. Now, the i30N Fastback is largely based on the hatchback, so you pretty much have the same front fascia. And just reiterating how cool this front fascia is, you have these nice aggressive LED daytime running lights with LED indicators and also some nice bright LED headlights, but the high beam could be brighter. Now, the i30N Fastback is the one model of Fastback you can buy in the i30 range. There's no models below it, and it's priced from just over $50,000 drive away. And under the bonnet, you're still getting that same 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged motor pushing over 200 kilowatts with OVERBOOST available. And yeah, so if you're looking to upgrade over a normal Fastback, you're getting a slight power bump thanks to a revised turbo and intercooler setup. Now check it out, the silhouette of this thing is a lot different from the hatchback, but no, it's not the i30N sedan, instead it's something completely different. So starting from front to back, we have these 19-inch alloy wheels, which are actually designed to save 14 kilos to the car's weight. A fun little fact you can throw at your friends. Now in those wheels, we do have N performance brakes, which are actually developed in-house by Hyundai, so they're not actually outsourced to someone like Brembo. And I do like the large N logo on these red calipers. Goes nicely with this red paint, which I think looks a little bit better than that baby blue and performance blue that you can get for this car. Now we have black mirror caps as well, and we have some more black surrounds, so there's no chrome along the side of this car, and we have N performance side skirts as well. And you can see from the B-pillar backwards, we've got a completely different body shape, and in true Fastback fashion, it goes down to a taper towards the rear. So Fastbacks of the past, like the Mustang Fastback and all those sorts of cars, yes, this is sort of emanating that body shape. And it's worth noting that these tires are wrapped in a Pirelli rubber, not the Michelin rubber, so I'm going to be interested to see how those perform when we're out driving. The Fastback gets this cool little lip spoiler in the back, which is contrasted in black to sort of show off that, yes, it's a bit more aggressive, and I do like that quite a lot. The back body styling here is also quite sporty and looks nice and clean as well. It's not too busy. I do like how simple it is, especially since you're lacking a rear wiper at the back. Some people might not be a fan of that, but I haven't found it to be a huge issue on this car. We have the nice Fastback script here on the back as a logo, and obviously we have the i30N badge to let you know this is an i30N Fastback. And of course we have our aggressive diffuser down below with the little rain light here and these giant exhaust tips. Looks way better than the previous generation. Sorry to anyone who owns that one, but this also sounds incredible as well. Take a listen. Now, after your ears have stopped ringing from revving this thing, you can check out the boot space in here. And despite this being a bit more compromised in its design, it is still a very practical boot. There is a giant boot lip which falls down into a very cavernous space, and it's actually very practical. So if you buy this body shape, it's going to be slightly more practical than the i30N sedan because it's a hatchback or liftback opening and not a trunk/sedan type opening. Now, we still have that cross brace member in the back to help with rigidity, but it just means that that might get in the way if you want to put long, large items through to the rear, but at least it's down and out of the way and not blocking the actual entrance to the second row like it is on the i30N sedan. Now inside the i30N Fastback, it's really not different at all from the hatchback. We still have some nice soft materials up on the dashboard. We have analog dials. We have a 10.25-inch display with all your N mode displays in there as well. We still have our physical dials for our climate controls, a nice shifter in the middle, which is for the DCT because this is the 8-speed automatic and not the 6-speed manual option. We have two 12-volt sockets next to a USB port and a wireless phone charger. And we do have some ample storage on the doors and here in the glove box as well, and the center console. And then I do like the fact that this car has the lightweight bucket seats, and they even have a little light up N logo in them as well. They look great, feel premium, and are very supportive, but they will be a bit rough over long journeys just because they're so much more rigid than the normal N comfort seats. Now the steering wheel is great in the hand as well, just like every other N product. The paddles are fantastic, even though they're made of plastic. I do like how they have small extenders on them without being too excessive. And then yes, you have your drive mode buttons on the steering wheel as well. So no, it's not any different up front, but the real differences are in the second row. Because the issue with the Fastback is that you still get sort of like the same hatchback type entry, but then you go to put your head back and oh, I'm hitting the roof. I'm 5'11", so I'm not all that tall, but I'm also not too short either. So for an adult, you will be hitting your head on the back, even if you're not over 6 foot. Now the comfort in the rear is pretty good. There's actually a relatively low exhaust tunnel in the middle, so it means that middle seat passengers can be okay, comfortable, not really super comfortable. But then the issue is that there's actually no rear air vents or any USBs in the back of the i30N Fastback. There is a little center armrest here, so you can put some small cups in the back, but yeah, it's not entirely comfortable for super long trips. I would say the front passengers are going to have the best of it, and then the second passengers are really just for jump seats, or if you have any child seats, you can put them back because there are some easy to access ISOFIX points. You have a couple of different drive modes. You have normal, sport, and eco. I will not be in any of those for this driving section. Instead, I've got N mode and I've also got custom mode. So custom mode allows me to have softer suspension and some softer steering, which just makes it easier to drive around while having everything else in sport, which I'll leave it in for roads like this. But you can jump into N mode, which puts even the traction control into a sports setting, and that's just really aggressive. You'll see, I'll start in N mode to show you what I mean. So cruising through here, you have great road feel through the steering wheel, and look, the chassis setup is just so predictable. This is an awesome hot hatch setup. Well, it's not really a hot hatch anymore, is it? Because it's a Fastback. But this sort of performance car setup with a tight chassis and these adjustable shocks just make this so much fun. And N mode makes you feel like you're really in a race car, especially in these bucket seats. Now, the dual clutch transmission does a really good job of changing gears depending on your throttle input. And there's even a N track sense shift mode, which means that it will detect if you're driving a bit more aggressively, it will start to change gears accordingly. Like now, if I go to punch it, we just drop down a gear and you can hear that exhaust liven up. And those pops and burbles actually have a purpose to keep the turbo spooled and activated, ready to go for prime acceleration. Now, it's a real point and shoot sort of car, and the active differential at the front does a really good job of combating any sort of wheel slip and understeer. So if we go through a corner and we actually put some power down, you'll find that the car doesn't really push you out into the corner. Instead, it does a fantastic job of mitigating that through the front wheels, which I'm very impressed with. Now, since this is a really bumpy ride in N mode, I jump into custom mode, and very similar to the Golf R Nürburgring mode, I've set it up so there's a softer suspension tune here, so I can sort of relax, not feel like my brain's going to jump out of my head, and also my spine will be intact after this drive. Now, we have paddle shifters here on the steering wheel, and usually I don't mess around with them in automatics, but here I would say they are quite fun to interact with. You can either slap the transmission into manual, which has a sequential pattern for your manual shifting as well, shift down a couple of gears, even into first, for example, and you get nice and high in the rev range, and this car just makes me smile. It's so much fun, and it's one of my favorite cars to drive because it does a really good job combining performance and actual theatre. So you can have fast cars. I've driven plenty of faster electric cars, but they don't do the same job with sound, feel, and also engagement like the i30N does. And 200 kilowatts is a lot to play with, especially in OVERBOOST. And there's actually an additional mode here on the steering wheel, which you get with the dual clutch option, which makes it slightly better than a manual transmission, and it's called Grin Shift. And it's meant to sort of make you grin, that's why it's called Grin Shift. But what it does is that it throws the gearbox in its lowest possible setting, makes everything super aggressive, and it puts the car into an overboost function, giving you more power for 20 seconds. It does have a cooldown period, but it is so cool to have a push to pass button on your steering wheel, very F1-like. And so, yeah, it's a great button to activate, which we'll do just now. So as we slow up to get Grin Shift ready, we slow up, and I'll be in the throttle, and then I'll press Grin Shift. Listen to that. It's insane, and it's holding gears for me because it thinks I'm going to keep going. I'm going to turn it off because I'm not using all of it, and that is just so much fun. And this gearbox just does such a good job of being in the right gear all the time, and really feels quite complimentary to this driving experience. And look, yes, I know shifting with your your left foot and your left arm is always more fun, but driving this dual clutch is just a next level experience. And to be honest, I think this is the next best dual clutch transmission after Porsche's ones. I think Porsche make the best automatic transmissions, and then this would be my second pick. This is just that good. And what I also love is that this transmission will make shifts more exciting, which sounds weird to say, but if I go down a gear, for example, and I go down to first, now I go, it kicks between shifts. It literally kicks you in the back like an old school single clutch, and that's just so awesome. And look, it sounds sacrilege to say this is, you know, more fun than a manual, but I have to say it totally can be, and I really enjoy using the dual clutch in here. Now look, overall the driving experience, brakes are fantastic. If we need to do an emergency stop, let's use this post here as a marker in 3, 2, 1. Sweet. Comes up to a stop nice and easy. Now it doesn't really have a super aggressive initial bite, so that's something to note. So yeah, like it has a more spongy start and then it just sort of grabs on nice and tight. But from what I've heard, end brakes do last pretty well out on the track, so they're a good track day option. Now the question remains, should you buy one of these? And the simple answer is yes. If you're looking for a fast front wheel drive hot hatch, the i30N still is one of the best options out there in terms of price and performance. Now you're looking at getting the i30N Fastback because you like the design. Otherwise you would have been looking at the hatchback. And I can say that yes, it is a really good looking car. It feels just a little bit more special to look at than the hatchback, but it's not entirely necessary. So if you think the compromises to the rear seat and a little bit of the boot room is just too much, or maybe you're not just a huge fan or sold on the looks of this thing, then the i30N hatch is probably the way to go.